Hello and welcome back to another appointment, doctors. Now this appointment's supposed to be scheduled for Xiaohei, but let's delay that for a bit. Today, I want to talk about the new operators, specifically the new 6-star ones in CN server for the 4th anniversary, and we got 3 of them. I won't mention Melanite because I can't speculate how her skill works from 5 seconds clip. We got the skills description and I have posted the rough translations the other day on the community post. So today I want to discuss them and predict the multipliers from what we see in the trailer, so just for fun. Disclaimer, this video is not the result of the final product. Everything I say in this video is still very speculative and from evidence we have in the trailers and skill demos. I also would like to point out that this video will be full of my own bias, but my opinion might change once they finally got released officially. Please take everything with a huge grain of salt. Alright, without out of the way, let's get started. First up, we have Silence the Paradigmatic, a 6-star Abjure supporter. Now, I initially have a lot to say about this. The word Abjure alone is already concerning, yet alone on a 6-star operator. If you don't know, Abjure is currently the worst archetype in this game right now, and a lot of people can agree with that statement. The only decent operator in this archetype is Quercus, who has good synergy with Gaviel the Invisible, while the other two being Nine-Colored Deer and Tsukinogi are undertuned. Even with Tsukinogi's buff, mind you, she still doesn't perform well as a support. However, Silence is a bit different. At first I thought she won't be that amazing, but turns out this demo shows completely different story. It took me a few rewatches and some actual testing, and I'll explain that later. Anyway, let's observe Silence's skill. Silence's first talent allows allies within her range obtain shelter. The lower their HP, the stronger the effect. It has cap at certain percentage. Now, before I continue, it seems that the shelter effect is very strong from how Zima still survived in this clip. She still needs Telopsis to do so, but we'll talk about this later. As for her second talent, it allows allies within her range to restore HP when their HP is lower than certain percentage, and the effect is stronger on right lap operators. Now it's really hard to see on what percentage the target gets the HP, so let's set this aside for now. Her first skill is a generic attack buff, so it's not worth mentioning. The second skill, however, allows her to deploy drone and her attack speed will be increased. Allies within drone's attack range will receive stronger effects from the first talent, and the drone will be destroyed when the skill duration ends or when Silence leaves the battlefield. From the looks of it, this skill has 18 seconds duration. Now, mind you, unlike the original skill, you need to activate Silence's skill before you can deploy her drone. It doesn't seem that her default range has the same effect as her drone because in the demo, they deployed the drone in her attack range, but her shelter does feel more noticeable than others within her archetype. I think in the demo shows the perfect example because these two enemies have really high attack. Now normally, Telopsis alone won't be enough for Zima to survive. Trust me, I tried that with her skill on and add another medic, and Zima can't survive. And you know what's crazy? Even Shining can't protect Zima from these two enraged possessed leaders despite being known as the strongest defense stat support right now. It is fair that this is pre-module Shining, but you get the idea. It seems that Silence's shelter effect is bloated because even Tsukinogi can't protect Zima. Fun fact here, Tsukinogi at skill level 7 has 36% shelter and has 46% shelter at mastery 3, which makes her currently the highest shelter provider as of now. It could be possible Tsukinogi can't protect Zima because her poor healing, and my Tsukinogi is currently at skill level 7, but even with another magic helping, Tsukinogi still can't help Zima to survive, and I can imagine the additional 10% won't do anything either. This can only mean one thing, Silence's shelter is way more than Tsukinogi's. So yeah, this is actually pretty strong shelter buff. Not even Telopsis activate her skill from this clip, so I can only assume that Silence's shelter is way above average from the current Abjurers right now. Is it possible that she overtakes the current defense supports from Nightingale and Shining? For Shining, maybe, maybe not, because she already has module and I haven't tried it yet. As for Nightingale, probably not. Ours are calculated by percentage anyway, so I don't know how that'll work out. Her third skill allows her to increase her attack, the first talent effect is improved, and once every skill activation, when an ally receives fatal damage, their HP won't be reduced to less than 1 HP within few seconds. This skill can only be used a certain number of times in the same battle and can be deactivated manually. So, this skill is Abjurers, Spectre, and Suzerain combined. From what we see in this demo, it seems that this skill has around 1 minute duration like Shining a Nightingale skill. It's not clear how many times we can use this skill, but from the looks of it, maybe twice per battle, but who knows. There seems to be a vague indicator, but it's very unclear with so many things going on with this clip, but after slowing it down, yes, there is an indicator, and that is this silver hour glowing surround siege. Compared to her second skill, it seems that this skill is extremely niche and her second skill will be her bread and butter. The fact it can be as strong, if not potentially stronger than the pre-module Shining, says a lot. It's worth noting that Shelter reduces both arts and physical damage. I don't think she can replace Nightingale, but maybe as strong as Nightingale. She probably still needs another medic or other source of healing since she only heals from skill activation, but we'll have to wait and see. Next up we have Holheak, a 6-star core caster, which makes her the third 6-star core caster in the game right now. Unlike Eyjafjalla where she is AoE based and KO based is single target based, Holheak is Levitate and Source of Silence. Her skills are in fact the combination of the two, so let's take a look at them. Her talent allows her to increase her attack when attacking aerial units and silence them. Now I don't know if it's a direct percentage attack or modifier, but let's assume it's a modifier for now. From her skill demo and preview, it seems that the silence duration and levitate have separate duration, so it is possible that you will obtain this talent first and get stronger at Elite 2. The silence seems to last 2 seconds at Elite 1 and 4 seconds at Elite 2, basically something like Lapland's talent. So if we take a different statement, it increases her attack when attacking aerial enemies and silence them for 2 to 4 seconds. As for her second talent, enemies above certain percentage of HP within her range receive Lightless debuff. Lightless debuff will reduce enemies' weight by 1. Basically, this is Angelina's third skill weight effect, but instead of skill activation, Holheak's version is within certain HP. Now if both Holheak and Angelina weight reducing mechanic stacks, then Holheak is a new addition to the bully or meme squad. But I mean, Holheak's skill description and animation already shows how memeable she is, so yeah, we'll have to wait and see. From the looks of it though, Angelina and Holheak's weight reducing mechanic might stack because Angelina is not necessarily lightless debuff, but direct weight reducing, but again we'll just have to wait and see. Her first skill allows her next attack to deal 2 targets with certain arts damage and levitates the target if she is attacking only one enemy. This skill can hold charges. Very straightforward, so let's skip that. Her second skill allows her to change her attack to fire few attacks per interval and randomly target enemies within range. Each attack has chance to levitate targeted hits. Now after slowing down the clip, the skill seems to attack 9 times and the levitate lasts 2 seconds. With that in mind, the description should be fire 9 times per interval and randomly target enemies within range. Each attack has chance to levitate targeted hit for 2 seconds. Basically, this is Amiya's second skill but with added levitate effect. With how Amiya's second skill works, I don't think this skill is reliable if you want to use her for general mob clearing. Unless the chance is big, I also don't think that she is that good for stalling your enemies either. However, the skill seems strong if she's attacking one enemy and the levitate chance is high because it hit the same enemy multiple times, and we can see that in this clip. I can only assume that this skill has below 100% per bolt because Amiya and Shalom who have the similar skill also have low attack multiplier. But if she does have 100% attack multiplier per hit, I'm not entirely surprised either. I also thought that her skill hit quantities might increase at mastery, but it doesn't seem that's the case because this preview at Elite 1 and her Elite 2 form still hit the enemy 9 times, but again we'll just have to wait and see. Her third skill allows her to expand her attack range and increase her attack interval. Attack changes to whirlwind blowing forward and the whirlwind damage gets stronger the farther it travels from Holheak. Levitates the first target hit by the whirlwind and deals certain amount of damage. From the demo, it seems that she can only target one enemy per whirlwind as it immediately stops once it hits something. It is clear that this is Holheak's bread and butter and her damage seems promising from the demo alone. If we take a look closely, Whole Heiak has 723 arts damage. When it hits the enemy, the number shows 2730 and 2915. If we assume that these enemies are 0 arts resistance, then this is close to around 370% arts damage and 400% arts damage respectively, not count with her talent's effect. So the description should be: attack changes to whirlwind blowing forward, and the whirlwind damage gets stronger the farther it travels from Whole Heiak. Levitates the first target hit by the whirlwind, and they deal certain amount of arts damage, ranging from 350% to 400% arts damage. I personally think she has great synergy with Trap Masters because Whole Heiak levitates your enemy very often, regardless the skill she uses. Also, none of her skills mentions she increases her attack, except maybe her talent, so I assume all of her attacks are attack scaling modifiers, which means she benefits greatly from attack buffers because she won't receive diminishing returns. If her talent is a percentage buff, then she gets slight diminishing returns, but again, we'll just have to wait and see. Finally, Muelseye. I think she is the most awaited operator as of now, and it's the first time in a long time that we got a non-alter limited operators, if we don't count the Sui siblings of course. Now Muelseye is an interesting operator because she is a tactician vanguard. It took a good time for me to figure out what her skill does, so let's observe her skill. Her first talent allows her to summon manifolds, or basically tactician summon. These manifolds can copy portion of stats from operators deployed on them to assist in combat. These manifolds can copy their HP, attack, defense, resistance, block, attack range, damage type, and has special traits depend on which operator is deployed on it. I'll mention about these special traits later, and the manifolds will refresh after defeated for a certain amount of time. Now I don't know if Muelseye's manifolds get affected by operator's trait, but it probably isn't because it's not mentioned on the skill. However, we do know that her manifolds take 90% of initial operator stat. We know that because she has 10% less stat from Nerl's main attack. As for her second talent, deployment costs of Rhine Lab operators are reduced, and the first deployed Rhine Lab operator gets even more reduced deployment cost. From what I observe, it seems that the second effect of this talent reduces one deployment cost and applies on Muelseye herself. And if we assume that this Saria is at potential 0, then Muelseye reduces 4 deployment costs to Rhine Lab operators. So if we make a complete sentence, deployment costs of Rhine Lab operators are reduced by 4, and if the first deployed Rhine Lab operator gets even more reduced deployment costs by 1. Now her second talent seems to be more useful on Dorothy, Magellan, and Maya, who are Rhine Lab operators, but I don't know if their traps and summons are counted as units, so we'll have to wait and see. From the looks of it, they're probably not. Before diving into her skill, let's talk about Manifold's skill first. Once deployed, it can copy operator deployed in it. If it's a melee copy, it will still attack and defense of its target. If it's a ranged operator, it will duplicate itself after a certain number of attacks for a period of time. This will depend on your strategy, but from the looks of it, ranged form seems more offensive than its melee form, but again, it still depends on your strategy. I also want to note that when you activate the Manifold skill, you won't consume DP costs when you deploy your operator on it, neither will they enter the redeployment state. Think of it as Ines, where she won't cost anything when you deploy her for the first time. Her first skill gradually increases certain amount of DP during skill duration. Additionally, increase both Muelseye's and Manifold's attack and attack speed. Seems like a straightforward skill, so let's skip the discussion. Her second skill allows her to immediately gain certain amount of DP and increase Muelseye's and Manifold's attack. If Manifold is a melee unit copy, recovers their HP and gains shelter effect. If it's ranged, attack becomes double hit and randomly attack enemies within range. This skill's duration is around 14 seconds and restore 15 deployment cost. From the looks of it, the ranged form doesn't seem that reliable if there's a lot of enemies within range, and randomized targeting for me personally is a bit odd. but I guess it's justified because she will summon more manifolds the more it attacks. As for the melee copy, I can only assume that it might be good if the operator you deploy has high attack but low survivability. So the new skill description should be immediately gain 15 deployment costs and increase Muelseye's and Manifold's attack. If Manifold is a melee unit, recovers their HP and gains shelter effect. If it's ranged, attack becomes double hit and randomly attack enemies within range. Finally, her third skill, which is definitely her bread and butter. It immediately gains deployment costs and increases both Muelseye's and Manifold's attack. If the Manifold is a melee copy, pulls the enemy towards itself with small force and stun the enemy that it blocks. If it's a ranged copy, immediately refresh all Manifolds and their HP. Each attack inflict bind for several seconds. After counting how long this skill can potentially get, it seems the duration is around 12 seconds and restore 15 deployment costs as well. If we take a look at the demo, they show how much Fortitude's stat is. This means 90% of Fortitude's attack is 1202. It's also worth noting that the Manifold's attack stat after the skill's activation is 1804, so this means that the skill's attack upgrade is at 50%. So the new description should be immediately gains 15 deployment costs and increase both Muelseye and Manifold's attack by 50%. If the Manifold is a melee copy, pulls enemy towards itself with small force and stun the enemy that it blocks every second. If it's ranged copy, immediately refresh all summons and their HP. Its attack inflicts bind for 2 seconds. The melee form is interesting because it has strong synergy with Centurion guards and defenders that are not duelists. This form is basically Eunectus but better because the setup is much easier and you can block multiple enemies at once, while Eunectus can only block one enemy with a block manipulator supports and has odd skill point recovery method. As for the ranged form, this one is also interesting because not only it can dish out good DPS but also bind your enemy very often. If you ask me, her ranged form seems to be more versatile than her melee form, especially it can be deployed on low ground even if it copies ranged unit. Not only it has bind, but the DPS potential is large because the Manifold clones itself for 4 times. It could potentially bring perma bind with marksman snipers or attack speed buff, but we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, those are my thoughts and my predictions about them. As for how strong these characters are, it depends on the numbers later. What I said here are still very speculative and from rough calculations based on what we see in the trailers. But I have to say something, Silence is actually strong despite her weak archetype. I think they blow Silence's shelter effect because she kept Zima alive despite facing 2 very strong enemies. I do hope she somehow carries this archetype because man, this archetype is just terrible. But I think it's clear that Muelseye is the star of this video and this update. Her skills are unique and looks fun. Now again, this is still very speculative and it could be possible that Silence is not as strong as I said. Because of that, please take everything with a huge grain of salt. And with that concludes our appointment for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please don't forget to give this video a like so this video gets more noticed by the algorithm. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss out my videos. Also, some announcement, I'll be attending Comifuro. If you're Indonesian or you're visiting Indonesia for Comifuro, please visit my booth. My catalog will be coming soon. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in our next appointment. This is Nichols signing out. Have a nice day and best of luck head hunting, Doctor.
Maybe I'm a little too shy, always trying to be the wise guy. The thought of you under the moonlight is running all over my mind. I was like a science street light. You took me over to the bright side. It's hard to tell you how it feels like I'm serenading on the skyline.